See here, we are going to be discuss about React.js hooks by briefly up to use callback. Okay. So first we are discussing about a use state hook. What is a use state hook? See, first before that we will listen. So we have completed a basic React.js and React hooks, and tomorrow, day after tomorrow, we are going to be complete a React Redux. Then we are going to practical live project, and some people are going with this one Java backend. Some people is going for the Node.js backend. Okay, fine. So now I want to go through one more time is the React.js hooks. Okay, React.js use state hook can use for the maintaining a state. This is the sentence I want, and it can store the boolean object array, a string or numbers, etc. Okay, okay. So I want to demonstrate with an example. So how to example? Get an example. So in the component folder, I want to create a file name called a something called a my data dot jsx. Okay. So React functional component export. So it is going to be create a functional component. So how to import constant? I want to create a one hook. That hook name is use state hook data set data. Okay, when equals to use state. See, before using you need to import it, or else you just type a use state, automatically it will come here. You just need to click here the use state bracket. Okay, so initially it is a what data is contains and what set data is there. Anyone? I already told you. So what data and what set data it contains. Okay, what is the data? What is the set data? Anyone? Okay, yes, exactly. See, in the interview, what they will ask, they will try to write a code like a data and set data. So you cannot tell directly in variable. Yes, that is variable. If you so by default it is a variable. So or a object, by placing an order we can define. If I pass a something called a zero, now it is a variable. But if I pass the key pair value, then it is an object. So you have to tell like that. The use state, sorry, use state is a hook. It is to maintain the state object state. So then data is now it is acting as a variable object. It depends on the what value we are going to be passing the use state parameter. And set data is a set means it's a method. Set and get are method, right? So set data is a method. It is going to be set the data to the my data. So the first type is I want to display here how the data stored in a DATE colon open close braces data. Okay, so I want to run this one. Control S. I will just render here. Comment it. Control forward. See how to comment means. So select all. Control forward slash means it is going to be comment, and Control S. So just I want to import. So my data is here. If I just import means it will come in the here. Control S. I will do npm start. Okay, so initial as an empty value, so it is acting as an empty. It is going to be display the empty value only. So same thing, I will use a one more variable constant. So you can define anything, okay? Less x comma set x, x comma set x equals to use state. So who is providing? React is providing. Use state is a hook here. Okay. Okay. X is defined. Okay. Just for CO. Okay. So here I will go here. The data is stored in the data is. So I will just cut it. Control X H1 Control V. The initial value is empty, so that is why it is empty. If I pass a value is something called a 100, so now data is going to be stored here 100. Okay, and if I want to that is a number, and this is a Virat, save it. So this is the Virat, and you want to pass the, is it displays? See, so now it is in a object. Why? Because it is going to be stored like this. If you want to store a data, Virat, Control S. So this is the array item. So to display the array item, you can do console.log also if you want to see the data. Virat Rohit is there. So this is called a use state hook. The next is what a set data. Set data is what? This is the method. Set data how to do? So you have to take a one button, change a value. So here when you click on click, I will call one method, uh, change a data, CLG. So not CLG, constant change a data is method equals to open close brace. So here I will call this method. I am using the set data of let's say I will pass a 100. Okay, 10. Initial value will be 10. Whenever I will call a, so it is a data plus 1, increment by 1 plus 1. So this is the method I have defined. Whenever I will click on this one, it has to be increment by 1. So how it is happening? When I click on this change value, it is happening on click event, and it is calling a change data method. In set data method, it is going to be set what is the data value? Initially 10. 10 plus 1, 11. So 11 is a set to data. So again data is changing the 11. So I will reload here. When I click here, initially data value is 10. When I click here, it is calling a set data method. Here it is. Data value is a 10. 10 plus 1, 11. 11 is set to the data, so the 11 is displaying here. Again, if I click here, what is the current value of data? 11. Okay, so this 11 plus 1, 12. So 12 is set to the data, so the data is printing here 12. So like that, it is going to be increment the value. Okay, so now what I want to do, I want to, okay, I don't want to go much on this topic. So just you hope you got an idea about how to use a use state hook. The next is a use effect hook. I will use the same example. So why we need a use effect hook? See, when I click here, it is changing the value or something like that. So sometimes whenever it is loaded a page, or whenever the DOM changes will be happen, so that time so you need to call the API or a request or any function or something. So for that, use effect. See, again you need to import from the React. If I just click means it automatically it will come here. See here, the use effect is came. So how to call the use effect? So use effect is a one hook. Inside we are calling a one arrow function. So here I will call a one method. What is that one? I will call a one data here. So how to call the data? JSON placeholder. So I will just take a some data. I will use this API. So this data I want to fetch and store it into my application. So for that I need to use a I need to call the API. How to call the API? What we are using that one key called what is that one? Axios. Yeah, exactly. So if I just click means automatically it is imported from the Axios. Axios dot get bracket colon. This is the API URL dot done bracket. So what does it mean? Axios dot get means this API URL. So this will make a connections to the this server. Axios dot get this URL means so this server is connected. It is the domain name is JSON placeholder typeholder.com. It is hosted somewhere US or UK or I don't know Australia. It is connected. Once it is connected, then means okay, it is made a connection. Then response. So response it is coming equals to open close brace. So here I want to display with the data. I will use a one more use state hook. I will just remove. Okay, I will use this one only. List a data set list data. So it is what type of array? This is the array of object. So that's why I will use a array. Okay. So a list data. What I will do initially it is empty only, but when it is given a response, so this is a small response. Okay. So then I will call the method set list data. So where it is, this is the set list data. Initially it is empty, but I want to setting the response data to the list data. So for that, response dot data. Okay. So how to debug whether it is working properly or not? Yeah, I've done a mistake. Response spelling is mistake. Control S. See, how to debug data. First, once I hit the API, it has to be returned some value, right? So that is a response. What response contains? Control S. If I just go to the browser, we will go to the Control Shift I and go to the console. See here, it is displaying here. What and all response contains config, data, header, request status, and everything. But I want only data. So data is here. So for that, I want to use a response dot data. Control S. If I just go to here, see here, it is keep on calling here. If you just see here, if it is keep on calling here, see this one. I think you might observing here. This one, this one I have added here. It is continuously calling here. If you just see here, this cursor is continuously going up. Okay, so I don't want to do here. Okay, I don't. Okay, first we'll listen here. Okay, so this is the data is showing here. So this is the data is coming from the server in the response dot data. So that data I want to set here. So how to set here? Re- Set list data response dot data means it is going to be set the response data. So I want to see whether it is set properly or not. Console.log set list data is plus list data. What is the list data? List data is initially empty array. So when it is hit to the browser, it is fetching the data from the server and it is just setting to the list data by method set list data. What response dot data. So then I want to see the whether data is there or what. Console.log set list data. See here, set list data is storing this data. Okay. So for that, I will just need to one conversion here. That conversion is a JSON dot stringify because we need to convert to JSON to normal JavaScript object. Control S. If I just go to here, reload. See here, the data is here. The set list data is here. So I want to iterate here. Means for how to iterate? How to iterate? Anyone? What method we will use? List data, where we have set here list data. So list data dot map open close brace bracket equals to, so here item li bracket item dot id. So not list data dot map. So the list data dot list data. Okay, so just a minute. I think we have lost we have done get data. Yeah, I have used here. Yeah, same thing. List data dot map dt. Okay. So on click delete data, I will remove here. Same data I am fetching here. Okay. So if I just go to the browser, this data is not a function. This data dot map. Okay. Change data console. Yeah, here it is. You are seeing the data, right? So it is user ID. List data dot map. So dt dot id. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let it be. We'll see in the API integration in the map. So here we are fetching the data. Okay, so here what happens before I will loop here, I want to show something here. Okay, so here what happens? Use effect, what happens whenever your project is loaded, so the DOM will be updated. Why? Because so DOM initially it is an empty list data. Whenever it is a component is loaded, automatically use state hook is called. We need to pass one more thing here, control S. If I just reload it here. Okay, so here what happens? Use effect automatically it will call whenever a browser. So here it is calling Axios data and response data and it is setting. So that is called the use state is the hook. Then it is going to be called when the component is loaded. So use state is to maintain the state. Use effect to fetch the data whenever it is component is loaded. Okay, so obviously component, what is a component? My data is a component. When it is loaded, automatically the use effect it will be called. Okay, so this is all about the use state hook and use context hook. The use context hook in the React is used to access the value of a context directly from functional component. Context provides a way to pass the data through the component tree without having to pass a props down manually at every level. So we have discussed about uh, a state and props. What is the state and props? Anyone? See, I have a component, the A. I have a component A. I have a component B. I have a component C. I have a component D. I want to send the data from A to B. How we are going to be passing now? Anyone? Send the data from one, sorry, render. No. So that is for render. Okay, that is importing. That is component to component. But I am telling about only a state. Let's say I have a state variable is called a uh, x equals to 10. Yeah, that is also okay. But what we can tell, passing a see component we are importing, so that is one thing, that is a rendering. I am telling about a state. State value is initially, let's say constant x. This example you can take it. So data, set data. So this data I want to pass to the get data from the server. How we are passing? Yes, exactly. So if you want to send a, first you have to understand. If I want to send a one component to another component, so that is called a rendering. If you want to send the state from one component to another component, state. Okay. But here in the use context, a hook in a React used to access the value of a context directly in the function component. Context provides a way to pass the data through the component tree without having to pass as a drop down manually. So what is telling that here we are fetching from component to the component, but we are not passing as an props. So that is called an use context. Simple. So if you want to send the state from one component to another component props, so other method is called the use context. Okay. So that is we are going to be discussed here. So this is very important because the use context they will ask in the interview. So how you are going to be use the use context? What are all the methods are there? So that is they will going to be asked in the interview. Okay, the first is a 1 minute. So use context. Okay, so there are three components we are using. So that is first we need to create a context. This is the one context. So that context we are giving to the one more component. So that is a b. So then we are rendering in the app.js. So this is the from here to here, here to here, we are passing the data. But this is not as the props. So for I want to create a one context that is called a user context. First, you don't need to worry about what is the coding. First, we will write and we will discuss the later. So in the component, I will create a one more folder called hooks to value. Yeah, okay, super. So here what happens? I want to, I have a component one and a component two. So I want to pass the state. What is the state? State is the information. So it can contain the array, object, variable, or etc. etc. So this state information I want to from transfer from the component to the from component A to B. So that is called as a props. So this is a we already know. So what is this one? Passing the state from the one component to the another component through the props. So this is a one method. And the same thing we are going to be pass the data from the one component to the another component without passing as an props. So there is one more method is the use context. So what is that method? You will get to know. So is it clear or still confusion? Yeah. So only thing is keep in mind to transfer the data from one component to another component. So already we have discussed about using the props and one more method is use context. Okay. So here we can pass the variable, we can pass the functions and everything. The first one is I want to create a one component. So that is a use context. Okay, .jsx React functional component export. So I need to import uh, import colon from React. React. So what I want to import? I want to import create context and use state. Okay, so create context and use state. So now see what is a create context and everything you are going to be discussed. First, you just observe. That's it. So you will feel a little bit confusion. So no worries. If you practice once or twice or thrice, you will get to clear this one. So first, I want to create a one context. Okay. So what I will do, I will instead of writing this one, I want to. Okay. So let it be. So I want to create a one function. That function name is okay, just I will do slight changes here. I will remove everything. I export constant user provider equals to colon equals to open close brace. Okay, so this is a my function. So here I will pass as a children. Okay, so now the constant. So I will take a one user comma set user equals to use state bracket. So initially I will set a null. So initially what I have taken the use state. So that is use state already I have taken here. So user set user is a empty variable, set user is a method. So that is clear. The first method I want to create a constant login equals to open close brace. So whenever I will log in, so that I need to pass the username. I will take username. Okay. So then I will call the set username bracket open close brace username. So this is the login functionality. Same thing I will use a constant logout set user bracket. So none. See, when he is logged in, so that time you need to set the username. When you log out, you need to empty that the state. Okay. So now I want to return a value. Return open close brace. So less than just so what is that one? Use context dot provider. Okay. See, you will feel little bit confusion. No worries. I will explain. User context. User context dot provider. Sorry. User context provider starting copy. Here it is a end. So now I want to pass the children. Okay, so this use provider is having a login and a logout. Okay, so this one I am passing as a one more component. For that component name is user consumer user consumer component dot JSX. Okay, so now a React functional component export. Save it. So I want to import a use context here. Import bracket the use context. So not use context, user context, that one. User context from colon user context. So how we will get to know whether it is imported properly? Hold a control, click here. If it is open this user context, then you have imported properly. So after that, I want to decrypt this one. So here, user context bracket. So this one, control C, control V equals to, I will destructure here. What is a destructure? I will just write constant bracket user and login logout. See, actually user login logout, where it is defined, it is defined user login logout. So this component details I am fetching and importing in the here using the use context method. See, I am sending the methods and the states here. Okay, so now the user login logout and the use context here. So now this use context is coming from the here. So here what happens? Now I want to do ternary operations here. I will just use a remove, enter, save it. The first one is I want to check the is having a user info. If have a user bracket colon bracket. So there are two things. This is the user. If it is there, this will be executed. If not there, this block will be executed. What is that block? So that is we will discuss here. So for that I will take a div and a end of div. I will just format document. Format document. Okay, let it be. Hmm. So now I will use a if he has a user welcome user dot username. If you have an user, then we should have a button. The name is logout. On click logout. Where this logout method is there? The logout method is here. Same thing we need to mention here. The logout. So this is for the logout. Same thing I will copy this one. I will add for here. So here initially, see when the user is there, he is logged in and he need to put the username. Below is the logout button should be there. When it is not in storing any value, so then please log in. Okay. So when I click on login, so this is the login method need to be called here. Save it. Got it. So this is the use context I have created. This context I am using throughout the application here. So user, so this is I have destructured from a user context to the user context. Okay. So whenever this is a user is there, then welcome to user dot username means it is printing username. When I click on this logout button, it is calling a logout method. Logout method, what it is doing, set user null. So then there is a no data. So then it is again it will check for the user. Then please log in. So this button login button is going to be shown here. Okay. So now I will go for the app.js. I will just comment it. Comment is select all, select that component and control forward slash for the comment. So now I will use a use provider. So where is the use provider? I will just use the import where it is use provider method is it is there in the use context hook. This is the use provider. Then I want to import user consume component in the component hooks user component. So this is I have fetched here. So then I will wrap where use provider inside a use provider the user consume component I am going to be wrapped. So any errors here? Yes. So this is the first what I want to do. I will explain pictorial representation. First we have a component called a user context. So this is a one context and we have a one more consumer component and here it is we have a app.js. So in the use context, so this is a user context. What is user context? We have a state variable that is username or whatever user information and we have a login and a logout functionality. So this is the one component. So this component I am just taking in the consumer component. Consumer component, it is checking the state. So if has an user, show the logout button. If he is not having a user, show the login button. So this overall functionality I want to display in the app.js with the use provider wrapper. So this is the app.js. Okay, so now I want to run the example. So it is showing an error. What is this one? Line number, source contents, use consumer component, line number 1216. So use context imported as a use context, user context, was not in the user context. So what is the error? Line number 12. So if you just control and click here, user context. So if I just click here, it is coming. Create a context. So it looks correct only. So then what is the mistake? So user context, provider, correct. Yeah, I need to create use context. The export, I need to define one more thing. Constant user context. Create a context. Initially, it is a null. Control S. So everything is correct. So user context.js. Use context line number 16. Control forward slash line number 16. Yeah, so I have done a mistake here. Context. Save it. So then provider P should be caps. Use context is not a function. Yeah, everything. Okay, I will just see here, but it is not showing any exact error. See, first it is going to be load app.js. So this is the consumer component. So here it is going to be create a uh, user component. Before that, it is going to be wrapping as a user provider. So here what happens? So it is going to be create a use context here. So initially use context is assigned to the null. So this is the component export constant use provider. So this is the children. So this is the component we are sending as a children to the user consumer component. So constant user set user, initially the user is setting a null value, and we have one method login. So username equals to set user username. This is the username we are passing, and the logout set user is a null. So login means so setting username, logout means we are setting a username to the null, and this one it is passing to the user consumer component. Here what happens, we have a user context component from the use context, and use context we are passing destructuring. Destructure means we have sent a bunch, then we need to separate one by one. So here we have sending a user login logout. So that is destructuring to the user to the store user, login to the login logout. When the user is having, so that is the welcome user dot username. So then button on click logout is there. So same thing, if you not having the user, so this block will be not executed, so this block will be executed. So that is the button, but actual we are calling on click event, but actual code is here, logout and login. So when I click on this button, so it is going to be call this methods. This is the method declaration, and this is called a method calling. Okay, so it is not throwing exact error here, but we'll close this one. I will reload. So Control Shift I. The use context web model is not a function. So where is this one? user context. So I think correct only. The user context correct only. What is the mistake? So this is the user context, and this is also user context. So both looks correct only. Then why it is error? So the above error occurred in the user component. User component is TP. Okay. Value prop. Okay, I will just go through one more time. So first we are going to be create a use context. So that is a create context and the use state hook. Then I want to create a use context. Then the create context with passing the null value. And the third one is the export const use provider, and children we are passing, and we are setting the user set user, and use state is null. This also correct. And we have a method that is a constant login. This is also correct, and this is the logout also correct. Then use context. Yeah, provider is inbuilt method. So inbuilt method is there. So here only it is telling error. Okay, now so I will go here and importing a user context from here. I think yeah, it is properly. And user component I want to destructure into user login logout from the use context. Yeah, not okay, okay, okay. Yeah. Use context here. Use context it is undefined. So cannot destructure the property of user of 0 React Webpack imported module 0 use context as it is undefined. Yeah, yeah. Which one you are telling? What line number? So this one, user consumer component. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Hmm. Yeah, you use context and user context. Okay, okay. See here what happens. What is user? User is a state object. It contains the username. So user dot username is it is going to be print the username. But here what I am so okay I will just see there are two state component. This is the one component. This is the one component. Sorry, one state. So when the user is having a so this component is loading. When a user is not having a this component is loading. So when the user is there, okay, when the user is there, user so user is there. So that time, so we are displaying a username here, means we have logged in. So below I want to define the logout button. So if you don't have a username here, Then you have to add a login button. So this below are just only buttons, but this is the value. So here the user value, if it is there, then he is logged in, and below should be logout button. If the user value is null and it is calling a login and it is telling the please login. Got it or confusion? Rakesh. Hmm. Huh. Yes. User contents is coming from the here, but initially we are huh. User contains initially it is null. I am passing a children here. What is the children? User, sorry, user login, logout. Initially it is null. That is okay. In the children part, what I am sending? So this all the data I am sending. So that is the children here. So user context or provider, user context initially it is null, but we have passed a children, so then it is adding all the values. So that values is coming to here. So that is I am destructure and I have sent it at the bunch. I am segregating user to the user place, login to the login, logout. So these three I am taking individually. So as you told initially, the user context is null only, but internally we are passing the value that null is replacing with the this user login logout. Clear? But when I logged out means set user I am setting a null means so there is a user dot username means it is showing a null value. So here user login, logout, use context. So first is I have created a context and that is a null and user provider. So user context dot provider it is going to be pass the null value to the user login logout. So this user context, it is coming here and we are restructuring into the user, a login, logout. If has an user, user dot username and button on click logout means it is going to be once he will click on logout, it is calling a logout method set user null. So here there is a no user means what? So this one it will be hidden and this one will be visible because when the user is there, so this one will be visible. When the user is not there, so this component is visible. Okay, so now still is throwing an error. Okay, reload it. I will check one more time. Reload. So cannot destructure the property of user 0 webpack model use context as it is undefined. So reload. Okay, so I will just have a look on this one.